All right, happy Labor Day, everybody. We're going to do a quick little video on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Obviously, I mean, it's old news at this point that he wanted out of Green Bay. They allowed him to seek a trade, and he come to terms with the New York Jets, and that's where he wanted to go. So what have I, as a lifelong Green Bay fan, what have I noticed out of Aaron Rodgers? I feel like I know a little bit more about him than what most people do, being the fact that I am a Green Bay fan and I've followed him his entire career. Um, One thing I will say, part of the reason I think he wanted out of Green Bay, um, obviously, he was not happy that they drafted Jordan Love without giving him a heads up on that. There's an interview with Alex Smith where they asked him about was he aware of them drafting a quarterback when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, and he said 100% he was kept in the loop the whole time. He had Andy Reid, he had the drafting department, the scouting department, he had everyone in the organization talking to him and letting him know like, hey, we want you to know this is the route we're probably going to be going. And I mean, it was all about respect, and Green Bay obviously didn't respect Aaron Rodgers enough to let him know they were drafting Jordan Love when they did. Um, and I don't think he was ever on good terms with the current GM. Uh, I've heard his name a million times. I can't pronounce his last name, but his first name is Brian. So as soon as he took over, he started making some moves that I think irked Rodgers quite a bit. One of the first things he did was he released Jordy Nelson. That was Rodgers, one of his best friends on the team, one of his go-to receivers in the early days of his career. Um, I know I understand the NFL is a business, and that was a business decision, but they didn't even try to go to Nelson and be like, "Hey, can we restructure your contract? Can we like redo your contract and pay you less? Will you take less to stay and play with the team?" I think had they have done that, I think Nelson would have been willing to do that, and I think that would have made the relationship between the GM and Rodgers much better. I think right off the bat, that just set everything off in the wrong direction. There's many other aspects of their relationship that really wasn't good, but while he was there, I think they coexisted at best. I don't think they were ever on good terms. I don't think they were ever any kind of major in-depth conversations or anything like that. And now that he's went to the Jets, I think the Jets have done a great job in keeping him in the loop and consulting him on things. Obviously, I know early on there's like big rumor that he had a list of players he wanted the Jets to go get, and they had to go get them. I'm not an insider. I don't have information to know if that's true or not. I mean, certainly it looks like was somewhat of a list because they went and got a lot of players after they got Rodgers, a lot of players that had history with Rodgers. But I think that's more of okay. We need receivers. So if Green Bay's not going to re-sign Allen Lazard, Rodgers obviously thinks highly of him. He probably told them that he thinks highly of him, so they went and got him. Same thing with Randall Cobb. Um, so I think the Jets have been much more transparent with Rodgers and have been upfront about how much they want him there. And I think that's an issue with Green Bay is he's stated that all of the members of the front office that drafted him and that were major important positions in the front office when he was drafted and early on in his career, they're all gone. So he had no one in the front office that was pulling for him like in the he has in the Jets where they are pulling for him. They want him. So I think he feels more appreciated, and I think he is much more happy with the New York Jets. I mean, I think that's obvious because he took a massive pay cut, reworked his contract to, I mean, minimal amount of money compared to other quarterbacks. I mean, I think he restructured it for 35 million over 2 years. I think I could be wrong, but I know 35 million was in the one of the numbers, and I think it was for 2 years. So, I mean, he took a massive pay cut, which allowed the Jets to then turn around and go after Dalvin Cook, which I think is something he wanted. They do have Hall, who I think is a really good running back. I think he was having a great rookie season until he got hurt. I think he'll have a good year this year, and I think between him and Cook, I think they'll split some touches. I think Cook is obviously a multi-dimensional back. He can catch passes out of the backfield. I think he's a better blocker than what Hall is. So I think they're both going to have a big role. But Cook being there wouldn't be a possibility without Rodgers taking the pay cut that he took. So that right there shows how happy he is because he wasn't doing that with Green Bay. Um, Another thing about the Jets, or I say the Jets about Rodgers is they were on Hard Knocks. We've seen anyone that's watched it have seen the clips of um, the one particular drive in one of the later episodes of Hard Knocks where he's on the sidelines just dropping f bombs left and right. So many mistakes, so many penalties, so many wrong routes, so many drops, and he's really not happy at all. But then you see him gather some of the younger players, and he you can see him talking to them, and then later on another drive, they're just clicking. They start moving the ball down the field. They end up scoring a touchdown on that drive in practice, and you can see how much happier he is. And there's clips with him standing over to the side while Zach Wilson's taking snaps, doing um, some play fakes and some play action in the pocket, and you see Rodgers trying to coach him up on how to do it better, how to sell it better. So you really see him working with some of the younger players a lot more because they're on Hard Knocks. And I will say I've seen plenty of those same clips with him working with Jordan Love when he was in Green Bay with Love. Um, there's a lot of clips of him joking around with him at practice, telling him, "Hey, try this, do this" to help make him better. And so I've definitely seen him working with the younger players more than other people have, but he's been doing it. But with them being on Hard Knocks and everything, I've had numerous people text me and be like, "Hey, man, I had no idea Aaron Rodgers was like that. Like, I thought he was stuck up and arrogant and all this other stuff, blah blah blah." And I mean, he does have an air of arrogance to him. I think that's part of his personality, but a lot of people have said that they look at him as a completely different person now after they've watched him on Hard Knocks. And I've known that for a long time. Like, I've known he's not the way the media portrays him to be in a lot of cases, um, just from following his career, following him on social media, all that stuff. So I'm not really surprised that people are coming around and saying they see him in a different light now. Um, it was inevitable, like I said, he does look like a different person because he's a lot happier now than what he has been in Green Bay. But what I've always told people is you really only see two people ever in the media trying to bash Rodgers, as in people that have been close to him in his career, and it's Greg Jennings and Jermichael Finley. And Jermichael Finley was only around for a couple years, and Greg Jennings was around for longer than that. And outside of those two players, like, there's numerous players that have left Green Bay in trades or just released, whatever, and you don't see any of those players in the media talking trash about Rodgers, even though they're on other teams. And I mean, if they wanted to, they would have every right to, because they're no longer his teammates, and none of them do it. It's just those two former teammates, Greg Jennings and Michael Finley. So over the course of his career, he's played with hundreds and hundreds of guys, and two of them want to try to drag him through the mud every chance they get. It's more of like, okay, they're trying to throw his name out to get some attention, and I mean, that's ultimately the way I take it because I'm gonna believe the masses over the few. But that's just me. Um, but real quick, let's go over some expectations for him in the Jets. Obviously, he's 2 years removed from. Uh, I guess technically 1 year, about to be 2 years removed from winning his fourth MVP. The year before that, he won his third. So in the past 3 seasons, he's won two MVPs. Does he still have the capability to be an MVP? Absolutely. I still think he's got a strong arm. He's extremely accurate still. I still think he's fairly mobile for his age. I believe I read the other day he is the oldest active player in the NFL. So um, that's quite an accomplishment to still be playing at a high level at his age. Obviously, Tom Brady did it. Tom Brady did it as well. Um, and he said he's wanting to play multiple years for the Jets, at least 2 years, maybe three. So we could see him for a couple years. I think as long as he gets on the same page with some of his younger receivers, Wilson especially, I think you're going to see a great connection between them two. I think that's going to blossom into something like he had with Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. He's going to be a great weapon for him. Obviously, he knows Randall Cobb. He knows Alan Lazard. So when he's in a pinch, I think those may be some go-to guys early on, and it'll transition to Wilson later on. Um, but ultimately, I don't think Rodgers is going to win MVP this year. I think he's capable, and I think the Jets have the offense other than the line. The line of scrimmage is kind of a weak point for him, but if he gets decent protection, I think he's going to have good numbers, but not MVP numbers because I think their defense is good enough that they're not going to have to put up big numbers to win games. I think their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. I think their defense is going to keep other teams from scoring a lot. I think their defense is going to get turnovers, which gives them the ball more. And I think what's going to happen is early in games, Rodgers is going to be surgical and he's going to be himself and he's going to get them in position to put up points early. And once the defense does its thing later in games, they're going to rely on the run game with Hall and Cook, and they're just going to grind out the clock. And I think they'll end up having a really good season. I think they'll make the playoffs. Actually, I actually think they're going to win their division. I know it's going to be tough with Miami and Buffalo in those divisions, but um, I just think they have the best defense, and now they have the best quarterback in the division. That's not a knock on Josh Allen. I really think he's a really good quarterback, but Rodgers is obviously the better quarterback. So I expect them to win the division and hopefully make some noise in the playoffs. And I say that like I'm not a Jets fan by any means. I am an Aaron Rodgers fan. Uh, and I will root for the Jets provided that it does not affect Green Bay in any way because they are my primary team. But all that being said, I do think they make the playoffs and make some noise. So we'll see how that goes as the NFL season kicks off in about 3 days from now, almost 3 days to the minute. In the next day or two, be on the lookout for some videos of my predictions for award winners, some bold predictions. I just made one with the Jets winning their division, but I'll throw out a handful more. And leading up to Thursday, I'll go over what I think's going to happen in Thursday's game, and eventually I'll make my game picks for Thursday night and week one coming up. So stick around.